It is. Dr. Laurie Smith, welcome to the program and welcome home.
Good morning.
It's good to have you. I need to get a little bit closer to the microphone.
Sorry,
there.
Is that better?
Boy, how long have you been home?
I have been home for about a week now, so...
Yeah. Turn it that way just a little bit. We didn't do the pre-op there. There we go.
There we go.
We got
Sorry.
it. That's all right. It's my fault. We should do the tutorial to start off with. No, I'm sorry. You've been home for how long?
Been home about a week now.
About a week
Headed
now.
back at the end of this week, so... Living in D.C. is a little different than Mississippi.
Yeah. The temperature is going to be a little bit different as we move into the winter portion, too.
Absolutely. I'm coming up on a year now. I think I started on October 28th of last year, so very excited.
Tell us the things that, and we'll get to the meat of the program because I want to talk certainly about your job and the Hall of Fame or Hall of Honor inductions. And we got plenty of time, but just some things about Washington that people that's kind of surprised you as a Mississippian.
I think it's obviously the cost of living. We pay more for my small apartment than I do for a house here in Mississippi. Number of people, but it's very different now. Of course, we didn't expect COVID, and so what's surprising to me now is not seeing people out on the streets and seeing parking and driving. So
is that slowly but surely coming back, or is it still to the point where it's noticeable?
It's still very noticeable.
Same as in New York.
Yeah, it's still very noticeable, but it's great. I mean, all of the federal agencies are open for work, and Department of Labor has been open this whole time, just doing it all a little bit different.
Did you happen to see or maybe be accosted by or any of the protest up there? Or there's always protest, of course.
I have not directly, but I have seen some of the protesting going on, and it's a little alarming when you're outside and eating and that's happening. So
it's a vast different world when you get out of the federal area into the city itself.
Absolutely.
It's just it's remarkable because people who live in that area, or if you work in that area, or you visit Washington, D.C., as far as the city itself is just kind of like Baltimore, not too far.
Yeah. But, overall, it's a great place. I've enjoyed living there. I love coming home. It makes me appreciative of being here for sure.
Yeah, and if you love history, in the old days, and I say the old days, it was actually before me, but I think my older sister was the last one to do this. A lot of the schools in the state, the senior class always went to Washington.
Mm-hmm. And actually,
they stopped that.
Yeah, the Smithsonian's are all opening back up. I just read that I think there's 5 open now, so I have seen some students and different trips there. But that's another eerie part, is walking down the National Mall and not seeing crowds and crowds of people. But that part is picking up a little bit more.
One of the many things that you wanted to talk about, and I appreciate this, is breast cancer awareness.
That's right. Right. I have a lot I'd love to share about the work, but it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. In 1990, I believe President George Bush declared October National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and at that time, in 2018, there were about 266,000 new cases of breast cancer, and that's the year that I was diagnosed. So I was one of those statistics.
Your journey since that time, everything okay?
Yes. So I have 2 years of being cancer-free. I actually have an appointment today with my doctor, Dr. Lay, as a matter of fact. But that really raised my awareness, and I just wrote an op-ed about this that will be published later this week. But I thought about it from my current job at the Women's Bureau, where we are so focused on flexibilities for women. I remember having to go in and tell Governor Bryant at the time that I was going to have to be out. And because I was a state employee, I had access to medical leave. I had access to paid leave. I was able to meet all those doctor's appointments, and the fury of things that happen when you get a diagnosis. 2 surgeries later, time off to recover. But it made me realize, and I looked some of these statistics up. It's Bureau of Labor Statistics report found that only 18% of private sector workers actually have access to paid family leave through their employers. And so President Trump, as you know, is leading in this work on paid leave. And I think it's so important. In December of 2019, for all federal employees, he was able to help promote the in a National Defense Authorization Act that all federal employees are now have access to 12 weeks of paid leave, and the Women's Bureau's.
It's kind of amazing that wasn't done in the previous 8 years under a different regime there.
That's true, but I'm so glad we're taking steps forward towards it. And, Ivanka held that event at the White House in December, and it happened shortly after that. So the Women's Bureau is very focused. We just finished a request for information about paid leave, and we learned, I think there were over 200 responses, and many of those listed cancer as a reason to need that as working for small businesses. So I think it ties in well and such an important topic.
Dr. Laurie Smith, Director of Women's Bureau, Washington, D.C., the Department of Labor. You ever have a chance to talk to the Secretary?
Secretary Scalia?
Yeah.
Yes, talk to him often. He's a wonderful person and has done a tremendous job leading the way at Department of Labor.
If people in the state, and certainly people even who know you, say, I'm not sure what she does, and I'm sure you've gotten some of those questions, or what the department does, what the agency does, or what the Director of Women's Bureau does, but just to spell it out for people.
Sure. So the Women's Bureau has been around for 100 years. We're celebrating our 100-year anniversary. We were formed on June 4th of 1920, so we're celebrating the centennial year. But as Director of the Women's Bureau, what I've been focused on, and this will just be a shock to you, that I'm focused on child care, Paul, and so that's been a big number one topic for the Women's Bureau. And it's more prominent now than ever before as women are working from home and considering going back into the workforce. Many unemployed. Child care has become a very top topic for the Department of Labor to really think about helping people go back to work. We also work on paid leave. We work on women in apprenticeships. We just gave out $4.1 million in grant funds to states to help incentivize women considering different pathways into high-paying jobs. And we are also focused on opioid research. We know that women in the workplace are less likely to report needing assistance with opioid addiction due to fear of losing their children. So we're doing some analysis on how we can help women seek assistance that may have those issues so
really,
they can remain in the
workforce. A lot of ways, there's some connectivity or commonalities with the job that you had in the state.
I believe every job I've done before has prepared me for the work I do now at the Women's Bureau. It's really representing every issue that impacts women. I feel like I've lived the life of a working woman, and certainly understanding the policy side of it the last 8 years in Mississippi was a tremendous asset for me.
I was reading an article, it's been a couple of weeks ago, about somebody said that the president's not going to get women's votes and how terrible he's been. And I forgot who put this together. It was a female journalist who bashed that argument about what he has done. And I look at, even in our state, I mean, you as the Director of Women's Bureau, Washington, D.C., with the Department of Labor. Mandy, who was in last week, Mandy Gunasekara with Chief of Staff for EPA.
Right.
Look at the first female senator from the state of Mississippi, and Cindy Hyde-Smith.
That's right.
And the inroads she's made as far as climbing that ladder of importance, which gives us a lot of power in the committees that she's on. We go to the state. I don't have a lot of time to go to the state. The first Attorney General in the state of Mississippi, in Attorney General Finch, and
right.
you look at the remarkable inroads we've made in the House and Senate as far as women are concerned.
Absolutely,
and that's a heck of a good story.
It is. The women are represented in every sector strategy.
And most of them under the R's. Republicans. I don't want to get into politics too much, but you can't not say that doesn't count. All right, we got more coming up. By the way, on the JT Show a little bit later on, Michael Watson will be on. Gerard Gibbert will be the host. And then Sean Tyndall, Commissioner, Mississippi Department of Public Safety. We have your old boss coming on at 8:06.
Good, great.
And you'll bump into him in the green room. More with Dr. Laurie Smith, Director of Women's Bureau, Department of Labor.
We don't need to drag her into this, do we?
No.
Okay.
Have you ever score danced? What's the other one? Clipping, clopping, the clobbers, what do you call it? Clogging.
I've never done that, but I knew someone who did it.
You knew somebody who did that?
Yeah.
Were they ever picked up or arrested or?
No, I mean, this is her thing. That's what she
that
was. That was her thing.
Let's talk about the award ceremony going on in Rosie the Riveter, which is, I think, a great. If people know about that, that was a great period of where everybody from Hollywood to everybody else were patriots and were all in, and women came forth, worked in factories. It was an incredible time in our country where we had a need and we all came together.
We sure did.
And it scares me that wouldn't happen today.
I even saw on our Rosie the Riveter poster that Marilyn Monroe was a Rosie before she became famous.
No kidding.
So I'll send you the poster.
How about that?
But yes, for Labor Day every year, the Department of Labor, United States Department of Labor, hosts an event called the Hall of Honor event, and they induct women and men and others that have made a significant contribution to the field of workforce. And so there are others in the Hall of Honor, like the 9/11 rescue workers, Mary Anderson, who was the first director of the Women's Bureau, Frances Perkins, who was the first female cabinet secretary at DOL, and Ronald Reagan's even in this Hall of Honor. So it's a very big honor to be inducted. And so with it being the centennial year of the Women's Bureau, 100 years of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, I kept thinking, how and who could we nominate as a woman for this year's event? And on my very first day of work, someone brought me a Rosie the Riveter coffee mug. It's still sitting on my desk. So as I was thinking about it, it dawned on me, what if we nominated the Rosie the Riveter, and not just the iconic image that we all know, but the actual Rosies. And so I quickly learned online that there are 3 associations that represent hundreds and thousands of Rosies across the United States. These women are all in their 90s now, and they put me in touch with many of these women, and I learned so much in listening to their stories. So we planned our event. It had to be socially distanced, of course, but we knew that 5 to 7 million women went into the workforce during World War II, and during that time, they built warships. They worked for Ford Motor. They built where are my different ones? They built ships, they built ammunition, they built lots of different things to contribute to the war. So
and the vast majority of these ladies never had any experience in that. They were thrown into it.
They were thrown into it. So we interviewed and asked the Rosies, and I hope you will post the video on social media for people to watch. But they're in the video, and one woman even says that she loves America so much, and she's 96 years old. If a war broke out today, she would go back and build warships today.
You know, what I think about when I see this, because I've toured the Nissan plant a couple of 3 times, and you see that these women, 115 pounds, have these robots that go in, grab the batteries, and insert the heavy batteries in there, and they do it by just a little click of the button. Back in those days, they didn't have that.
Oh no!
When they were building these tanks and everything else, these women were lifting. I mean, it was a whole new world.
And
they did it.
It was the woman who came to Department of Labor. So we had to film it, of course, socially distanced. So we had Melania Trump participated, Ivanka Trump did, Secretary Chow, Secretary Scalia, and myself, and the Rosies. And so June Robbins was a Rosie, and she told me that she didn't have a car, and so she had to hitchhike to get to her job daily when she was a draftswoman building warships. And when she was in high school, she wanted to take the drafting class. They wouldn't allow her as a woman, so the teacher let her sneak into the class. Her other teachers had to count her as present so that she could get the drafting experience and do that work.
She was how old at that time?
She was 17 when she was in high school, she said, and had to do that, and then started working at 18 building warships. So it was quite remarkable.
Was there an original Rosie that took the Rosie name and the image itself, or was that just a compilation?
There was a model for the Rosie the Riveter, as I understand it, but it's more of a symbolic.
I got it.
So we recognized all the Rosies and put that all together into the remarks, and you can view that on YouTube if you search for the Rosies Department of Labor Hall of Honor event, or on my website at dol.gov/WB. So we also wrote an op-ed about it that's on the website as well.
You have had the opportunity to be around Ivanka
Yes.
more than once,
Yes.
and your thoughts.
You know, she's a champion for these subjects that we've talked about for so many years, child care in particular. We had an event a few months back in Denver with Ivanka at a child care center. And what was remarkable is this was a woman-owned business, a child care center that had stayed open through the whole pandemic. And she was an SBA loan recipient, had a partnership with FEMA, and she was open for business to help these families who were working in her community in Denver. So Ivanka and myself met with the director. We held an outdoor, socially distanced round table, which was a challenge on a playground, if you can imagine. But she's so passionate on these subjects and continues to be a champion for child care and paid leave and representing women's issues in the United States. Just remarkable.
It's just, less than 3 weeks before the election itself, and there could be a lot of things turn over. We have no idea what's going to happen, but it does affect these different agencies.
Are you talking about the agency like Department of Labor and where I am? Yes, but I'll be there another 4 years.
You will be there 4 more years. I guess that's what I was leading to. If the worst should happen and Biden is elected, but you're still there.
Well, I actually, since it's a presidential appointment, it is up to the president to decide, but I feel pretty good about where I'll be.
What's next for you? I mean, what's after this one as far as the Hall of Fame thing?
Well, I've got a lot of great events this week. Tomorrow I'm speaking to a group called Mom Congress to 1,300 staffers at members of Congress about the women in the workforce and ways we can assist through child care. We're working on trying to get a very small tweak we're promoting or digging into to change the efficiency of employers offering employer-sponsored child care. It's one small statute to change to a regular rate reform for overtime rules, and we're hoping to get that included in one of these future aid packages. I've been working some on assisting with the relief packages and representing child care. We had $3.5 billion in the last CARES Act, and trying to help stabilize that child care market right now so parents can be working.
You and I we were talking off the air about the what goes on in our state. There's a lot of things still flexible, and we've only had one session, and it just died the other day, by the way, as far as
yes,
died.
I read about that.
But as far as your old job, as far as the SWIB board and everything that was going on there, all of these things are important to our state, and they are still in formation, and hopefully by January we'll get all that taken care of. But any comments on that?
Absolutely. Well, just, now I work with other states, and I go and speak to other state workforce investment boards, and I know a lot about what they're all doing in terms of trying to help people get back to work right now. So I think I actually have a meeting with Mississippi Community College Board coming up to talk about their online curriculum to train people in work so they can get certifications.
This is before you go back?
No, I think it might be this week. I'm not sure what day it is, but I'm doing it with other leadership at Department of Labor. So I'm bragging about the work of Mississippi and at the national level as well, and bringing some of those highlights to their attention. It
is, and we got Amazon, another Amazon opening soon.
I was so excited to see that. Absolutely.
It's amazing. That's hopefully about another 1,000 jobs. And I was reading some things about the ones up in the North Mississippi area, and of course the one in Memphis, Tennessee. And with this Prime Day coming up, who knows what's going to happen as far as the amount of hustle and bustle.
Absolutely,
it's
absolutely.
Crazy.
Well, I think.
Any final thoughts here?
Well, just excited to be here and talk about the work of the Department of Labor. For anyone else who's interested in those grants we give out or learning more about us, please follow us on Twitter at WB_DOL.
Could be some money there, is what you're saying?
Yes, we have grants that we give out.
Well, if that's the case, then mention it one more time.
Our website is dol.gov/WB.
There you go. Always good seeing you.
Good to see you as well.
Dr. Laurie Smith, Director of Women's Bureau, Department of Labor. Dr. Laurie Smith, again, one more time on the website.
It is dol.gov/WB.
You got it.
Thank
Phil Bryant's
you.